when I sort of like got rid of the debt and I'm there in Dubai in the glitz and the glam and I've got a bit more money in the bank and everything else, I'm like, is this it? Yeah. Is this it? So it's like I've done all this work on myself. I've moved to the Middle East and I've got out of my debt. I've changed jobs. I'm on sort of financially doing quite well. Why am I still sat here miserable?
Hi, Adam. Welcome to the show today. Let's start by just asking you, how is your life now different to it was, say, 10 years ago?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And wow, from 10 years ago to now, that there's been quite a significant shift or multiple shifts, I think, in terms of lifestyle. But today, I'm 38 years old, and I'm a life coach, nutritionist, registered nutritionist. I own a health and performance company called A Game Consultancy with my business partner. And we help people with one-to-one coaching, life coaching, nutrition, taking a break from alcohol. We also work with corporate companies, mainly in the leadership teams, helping them to perform better. And we also host men's retreats. What I was doing 10 years ago was drastically different. Yeah. I'd say even maybe just like 5 years ago, because the business is, we're going into year 5 now. So
Okay.
it's over 4 years old. But yeah, how can I explain this? So the clients in the one-to-one, sessions that we work with today, I was them basically. So I was the burnout executive. So 10 years ago, I was working in corporate IT, in the 9 to 5, in the rat race, whatever you want to call it, trying to climb up the ladder. And I burnt myself out in the process, basically, which is very easy to do, if you're trying to prove your worth and everything else. I'd say I'm a recovering/recovered people pleaser. And that's a lot of work that I've done with my coach to understand where that came from. And because of that people pleasing years ago, I didn't really have any boundaries in place. I'd say yes to everything. And that led to a lot of spending money unnecessarily, drinking in excess at the weekends. And I was like, obviously didn't have those boundaries in place. So over time, my health started to deteriorate. And my mental health mainly suffered the most. So that's when I decided to make some drastic changes to my life and have arrived to today. So going from that sort of corporate burnt out IT guy to now, a health and performance coach, a life coach. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, was there a pivotal moment there? Because I think lots of people will resonate with that feeling of, whether you're burnt out or you're just on the edge, where actually life is snowballing. And what I mean by that is you get up and you go to work, and then you've got to go to the drinks after work, and then you get home and then you're hungry and you eat something quick and easy, but then you go to sleep and you get up and you do it all again the following day. And it's hard to feel, how do I get out of that? I'm sure lots of people ask themselves.
Yeah, I think it's understanding what you really want, because if you've not done the sort of work on yourself where you have a clear purpose and a clear vision, I think you're always going to be stuck in that, basically. And I think people that I've worked with recently or over the years, they may have sort of like a clear sort of vision with their relationships or clear visions with other areas of their life, or maybe with corporate, but not like overall. Like they haven't really thought of like, how do I really want to spend each day? And it comes back to that question. If you had a choice, how would you honestly want to spend each day? What does that look like? Is it sat in an office 9 to 5 every day? Or is it at home? Is it out and about? Is it, do you want to be with family? What is it that you want to do? So I think that's where people might get sort of caught up with it, or if they're wanting to get out of it, it's coming back to that question. What do I really want? How do I want to spend each day? And where do I want to spend my time, money, and energy? That's another one as well. But I think it's just stepping back, because you can get caught up in it all. Just hit the pause button and then start thinking of those questions and start answering those questions.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you mentioned people pleasing there, and often that
Mm,
can be a major one because you might not have ever thought about what do I actually want to be doing? What's my purpose?
exactly.
Because actually, all of your time is taken up saying yes to everything to keep everyone else happy, and maybe a lot of people haven't even paused to think, well, actually, what do I want?
What do I want? Mm, yeah, exactly. So I was just thinking of that when you were saying that. I was reminded of the film, The Notebook. What do you want? What do you want? Yeah,
Yeah,
on there. But it's right, and unfortunately, a lot of people they don't know, or they've not taken that step back to understand what they really, really want because they start the job and out of university, whatever, and then they climb the ladder, and then they meet their partner, they get married, then it's kids, and then all of a sudden you're like, shit, how do they end up? Sorry, am I allowed to swear on the
yeah,
podcast?
of course you can.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
how do I arrive here? Yeah, and I think with some people, especially with me, it's one day it just hit me. It's like I'm really unfulfilled, and this way that I've been living is no longer serving me, and that's what hit me, and I think it's what hits a lot of people. They have to get to a certain level of pain, and they'll only ever make a change or a snap decision or dive into like a significant change to change their life when that pain outruns the pleasure. Until that
yeah,
happens, they're just going to stay in that cycle, and they'll use things. They'll maybe use alcohol or seeing their mates, or they'll just sort of settle for what is. Yeah, but until that pain hits, now that pain may come from multiple things. It may be a threat from your partner that if you come in drunk again at the weekend, I'm taking the children off you, that sort of thing. Or it may be like, your button on your jeans doesn't fit you anymore. It may be you're out of breath when you get to the top of the stairs when you're taking your child to bed. It's these sort of pain points. Or you're not comfortable in with your body when you're having sex with your partner. It's these sorts of things, these real life sort of pain points that when someone then it hits them and goes, shit, I need to make a change. Yeah.
yeah. And I guess
Yeah.
for lots of people that does creep up on them, like you say, that little bit of suddenly the button won't do up or
Mm,
whatever it is. And you mentioned, your mid late 30s. I think a lot of us in our 20s get away with it.
yeah.
We can we
Yeah.
can we can we can get up, go to work, also go out. And we seem much more resilient. And then suddenly you hit your 30s, and that's when your mental health starts to really be affected. I'm not saying obviously people in their 20s don't suffer from mental health. What I mean is that, it suddenly seems to build up, and you start to think, oh, is this it? Because I think you come out your
Mm,
teens, you become an adult, thinking adulthood is one thing, and then you get into your 30s and realize actually this is just the same day replayed,
yeah.
and you sort of feel like, oh, is this it? And you
Yeah.
start to question everything.
Well, that's interesting you say that because that's exactly what happened to me. I went from other sort of parts of my story before, when I made these drastic changes, I wasn't actually in the UK, I was in Dubai. And years ago, I was actually in quite a bit of debt. So I'd sort of got all this debt as well. And that was another a pain thing that I needed to sort out. But what I realized when I was sort of like going through it all was exactly that. I was like, well, when I sort of like got rid of the debt and I'm there in Dubai in the glitz and the glam and I've got a bit more money in the bank and everything else, I'm like, is this it? Yeah,
Yeah.
is this it? So it's like I've done all this work on myself. I've moved to the Middle East and I've got out of my debt. I've changed jobs. I'm on sort of financially doing quite well. Why am I still sat here miserable?
Hmm.
What's going on? And this is what I find sometimes with our clients. They're very successful in their businesses, in their careers. Maybe it's mainly men that I tend to work with, men in their sort of 40s. They've got a family as well, and they're deeply unfulfilled. They've got the nice house, they've got the car, they've got the family, they've got the money. What's going on here? Why are they not fulfilled? So it's
Yeah.
interesting that when you go into that, and yeah, it just links to what you were saying. Then you get to a certain point, it's like, is this it?
Do you think we're chasing the wrong things?
Yeah.
As in we don't appreciate actually some of the smaller things. When we're younger, we are chasing the money, and we're chasing the faster car and the bigger house, and rather than chasing actually some good mental health and good physical health and things like that, and then we suddenly realize actually all those things that we see that we maybe perceive as being successful. And you said that about the men you work with. From the outside, people will look and go, well, hang on, what's he moaning about? He's got a family, he's got a good job. What's the issue? But do we need to reframe success?
Well, I think that the success is subjective. So like your definition of success will be different to mine. And I think if you had 100 people in the room, you're going to get 100 different answers, So, but yes, I think sort of like the general sort of social is success is money. I sort of see where you're going with that. Yeah. I think for me, success is progress. Now that progress, it can be in business, career, progress in my relationships with my wife, with my children, progress in my health, progress in my chosen sport, progress. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the way that I see success. But yeah, I think the whole sort of like the generalization of success is it does tend to be about money. And I agree. Yeah, probably need to reframe it. And I think a lot of the time when I'm coaching my clients, it'll be asking what does success mean to you? What does that mean? And then, it's helping them sort of reframe it.
Yeah, and I guess actually just having that. I mean, I often say, money doesn't make you happy. A freedom makes you happy, and actually, your freedom of choice. And admittedly, living in the world we live, often money can make that much easier. The choice of being able to have a new car or travel or all of that. So it does provide all of that, but actually, if you're not comfortable in yourself, in your own skin, and in your head. We've seen. I mean, male suicide has been on the increase, and it gets spoken about a lot more. But we're seeing people who you again would see and think, but they've got it all, but actually they clearly haven't, because are men lacking that purpose?
Yeah, and there's the identity piece that comes into this as well, especially if if we're talking about men, and I'm sort of generalizing here a little bit as well, is men, groups of lads at school, going out, university, everything else, and going out and getting drunk and all that. We all have a character that we play in our circles, especially if it's your school friends or your friends, that your group of guys that you spend the most time with. You play this character whether you know it or not. That's why you might have like nicknames like Steady Eddie, or I'm just making stuff up now, but you know what I mean? Like, Steve's he's always making a fool out of himself when he's drunk, because you play that character. And what happens is, as we get older and older, and then the circles of friends are still meeting up, the guys are still meeting up, but maybe they're married now with a couple of kids, they still play out that role when they meet up. And what this does is it plays out in everyday life, but you're still hanging on to that character, to that person, when really that character needs to die off. It's done. So one of the things that we do in a lot of our coaching is asking the question, who are you becoming? It's a great question.
That's a really powerful question.
Yeah, that should be, splattered on your desk wherever every day. Who are you becoming? I have a quote which is sat right next to me now, and it says, "You're not where you want to be because you haven't done what is necessary yet." It's just a reminder that there's two ways you can look at that, but it's basically, I've created the contentment and the fulfillment, but don't settle. There's still more to go. So I think with a lot of people, it's understanding who are they becoming, and a lot of people have a lot of fear to step into who they really want to become, and they hold on to those old identities, which they play out in certain social situations, but deep down, when you peel back the layers, it's killing them inside.
There's a lot to unpack there, and there's some
Yeah,
really
there
powerful
is.
questions you ask. But I mean, so what? Let's talk about you. So what change did you first make on? And I'll say a journey, and I know sometimes that sounds a bit cheesy or a bit cliche, but I do believe we are all on a journey. And what are you becoming? What was that first step? What did you start doing to look after yourself?
I stopped drinking alcohol. So I wasn't an alcoholic, I was just someone who would, let's just, I'd go to work Monday to Friday. I wouldn't really drink during the week, but the weekend would come round and I'd get absolutely shit faced. That was my life for a very, very long time,
Yeah.
all the way through my 20s into my early 30s. And, I did things in my 20s where I sort of went off to Australia and did all the whole backpacking thing and all that sort of stuff. Early 30s, I moved out to Dubai. And when I reflected on it, I was chasing my utopia. That's what I was doing, you know? But what happened was when I moved over there, I still carried on the same sort of behaviors that I did back home. So I met a circle of friends. My wife and I moved over, went over together.
Yeah.
We carried on the same behaviors. We'd go to work Monday to Friday and then go out and get drunk. And over there, it was a bit different. It's yacht parties, it's brunches, it's all that sort of stuff. It's lots of glitz and glam. And I think over sort of the first year of being there, I realized that I'd sort of been chasing this utopia, a whole new lifestyle, and it was brilliant, and and everything else, it was great. But like I mentioned, a moment ago, like I'm still feeling like shit inside, and
Mm.
I always remember it. I was sat there on a sunbed, and I'd been out the night before. I'd only had a few drinks, and I remember very clearly. I was sat on the sunbed, and I was just riddled with anxiety, stress, worried about. At the time I was working for a company, I was worried about my KPIs and worried about the meetings that I had the next day. And I was just like, oh, it was all in my head. And I was like, that's when I realized what is going on. And
Mm.
then I started to watch some videos and things. And then it was actually a guy called James Swanwick, who was an Australian entrepreneur. And he was talking about the power of being alcohol free. And I started Googling how to be social without alcohol. And that was one of the first videos that I watched about being alcohol free. And then listened to some more podcasts and stuff about self-development. I also listened to a podcast from the Happy Pair, which if anyone knows who they are, they're Irish twins in the vegan space. Very energetic. I've actually met them as well. They're great guys. And they were so energetic on their podcast, the most energetic people ever meet. And I'm like, they're older than me. Where are they getting all this energy from? And then they
Yeah.
said something on the podcast. They were like, we don't drink and we're not drunk for 20 years. I was like, they don't drink. What? I tied all this, like being successful and, having money and all this is all tied to alcohol and fame and all that. When actually there's people out there and the most smartest people in the world and the ones that actually hit elite performance don't drink alcohol. And when I made that discovery, I was like, shit. And that's when that was the moment then, what you said, like, what was the change? And I thought, I'm going to take a break from alcohol. I'd never done a dry January. I'd never done a sober October. I'd never done a whole month without alcohol in me, so I thought I'm going to give it a break. And I remember getting to 4 or 5 weeks and I felt incredible. I couldn't believe how different I felt just from 5 weeks without drinking alcohol. And that's where the shift came. And then I started to focus on other healthier things. Like I joined up at a gym. I started going into like obstacle course racing and running. And that was the switch there. So, and everything after that was health, fitness, marathons, ultra marathons, life was very different after that. I was doing really well in work, in office, but that's when I came to the realization, because I had so much mental clarity in my head, that whilst I love my job, but also this is not what I want to do. And that's where the whole purpose piece came along. Started
Yeah.
doing that in a work with a coach that helped me. And then I worked out what it was that I wanted to do, which is what I do today. So, yeah.
Yeah. There's a bit in there you said about, some of those, the health goals, or not the health goals, but you started, running, going to the gym, and then you're
Mm.
doing some really long distances. Do you think that then gave you the buzz that you maybe used to get from going out and getting drunk? Because I think we all need those things in our life that
Yeah.
give us that the oomph, the dopamine hit, isn't it? And
Yeah.
we know that actually going drinking does hit your dopamine, but equally so does exercise. So do you think you managed to actually replace that, and that kept you on track?
100%. Yeah. And that actually came up on one of my coaching calls with my coach a couple of years ago. And he made that connection because he was like, what are you trying to prove running for the ultras? And that was a whole other thing. And that was the transition of, yeah, you'd go out and get drunk and try to fit in, use the alcohol to fuel yourself, to feel good, to hit the dopamine. But then when I went alcohol free, all that energy that went into the drinking, everything else, just transitioned straight into fitness, ultras. You know, I'd be getting up at silly o'clock, like 4 o'clock in the morning, to go out and run 35K. The earliest I ever woke up in Dubai because of the heat was in the summer. We'd get up at 3 a.m. and go run in the mountains. That's what we'd do.
Yeah, a few years
Yeah,
prior, that'd be when you're going to bed. It's funny
yeah,
how 3 a.m.
exactly.
is like a different,
It's like a whole different
different
shift.
time for
Yeah, but
depending
to
on the
answer your
period of your
question,
life.
yeah, I got the buzz that way. So that was my, and it still is to this day because now I tend to do a lot more CrossFit these days, so I get the different buzz that way. That is my drug, yeah, and that's how it changed from that to that. Mm.
Yeah, because I think as human, we do need dopamine, but
Mm.
it's where you find those hits and trying to make it much more natural than perhaps alcohol or even food, or
Yeah,
unhealthy food or excessive food. Obviously, we need food to live, but just finding something that actually gives you that buzz and obviously hugely benefits you. Not just physically but mentally.
yeah, yeah. So think it's more replacing dopamine activities with serotonin activities.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
dopamine, it's great, isn't it? It feels good. Dopamine can hit you with alcohol, smoking, watching Netflix, or going on social media, reels and things that you see on social media. They can give you the dopamine hits, getting likes and all that sort of stuff. People get their dopamine hit, sex, they get the dopamine hits in various different ways. The problem with dopamine is what goes up must come back down again. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Serotonin, on the other hand, is slightly different. In fact, it's very different from a sort of physiological point of view. Is that's that sort of inner happiness feeling and contentment feeling, and it comes from eating healthily, getting a good night's sleep, drinking water, getting out for a walk. If you're not feeling great, you definitely feel 5% better when you get outside for a walk, don't you?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
serotonin. That's the serotonin activities. Yeah. So, and that's a lot of the things that we teach at A Game. Meditation is another one. Um, it's getting the basics right. Let's, this client who's, having a challenging time, have they got the basics in place? Are they sleeping right? Are they eating healthily? What small steps can we take there? Are they drinking enough water? I can tell you now that, in my clinical practice on the nutritional therapy side, 95% of the people that I've seen over the years, they weren't drinking enough water.
Yeah.
So it's just like little things like this, but that, and also like meditation, deep breathing, and things like that, that is what's going to feed the serotonin and give you sort of more of that inner sort of happiness and contentment inside. But at the same time, it is pulling back from the dopamine stuff as well. The things that give you the too much dopamine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and do you sometimes feel that, sort of modern life actually maybe isn't set up for how we should actually be living because there is, well, dopamine is so easily accessible. You
Mm,
mentioned social media, scrolling through reels. Actually, in a way, that's very easy to get. Whereas even going to the gym, is slightly harder.
yeah.
But it will give you a better hit afterwards, is
Yeah.
what you're sort of saying.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But I agree with the system. I refer to it as the system. I don't know why. It's like,
So sort of matrix sort of
yeah, well,
feeling.
yeah, that's
But
kind of
it but it
like
is.
it is exactly that. And actually, I talk about that in one of my courses, the Alcohol Reset Challenge, which is about taking a break from alcohol, about how you're just in the matrix, and when you stop drinking and take a break, you unplug from the matrix and you see the actual
Mm,
real world. But it's
yeah.
right though, because yeah, it's sort of taking that step back, like you were saying before, because that links into what you're saying before about getting caught up in sort of the loop of everyday life. But yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, and I think the system doesn't set you up for success. But having said that, it's never been so much easier to win. Today, it's easy to win. It's easy to succeed. But people don't lack resources; they lack resourcefulness. That's the difference. That's what it is,
Yeah.
and it's about having discipline around all those sort of, which can be toxic things, like you said, social media. And so, analogy that I do as well is like with the phone, like either you control the phone or the phone controls you.
Mm.
Which way is it? If you're responding, if you've got your notifications, I mean, I'm holding it up now. I've got one notification. That's the diary event for you and me.
Yep.
But if you pick up your phone and you've got loads of notifications and you're responding to every single notification that pops up, then the phone's controlling you. You're not controlling the
Mm.
phone. And this is where what I said at the start about having some boundaries in place. Yeah. And I think people who don't have boundaries in place and they're very much in the matrix or in the system, they're just getting knee jerked. They're like a bit like a puppet. They're just getting knee
Yeah.
jerked side to side. Yeah. And then that
Yeah, I
links
guess it,
into as well, like not having the clear purpose, the clear goals, and
yeah.
then will
And it,
lead to unfulfillment. Unfortunately, it will.
yeah. And I guess it goes back to what, yeah, we were talking about right at the start. If you feel like you're trapped. You're just every
Mm,
day is the same day. So I guess you mentioned there, drinking more water. But
mm,
if someone is feeling trapped, and unfortunately, when you feel like that, you almost feel like everything's too big a step. But what you said there was that actually just take some small steps
yeah.
first of all, and one of them being making sure you're drinking enough water.
Mm.
What are some other small steps that people can implement actually quite easily, and they just need to build up the habit of sticking to those? Because if you said to someone, well, actually, if you need to run an Ironman, they'd be like, whoa, that's a massive
Oh,
step. But
yeah.
actually, going for a walk could be the first part of actually just getting out and getting some steps in, because currently they sit at an office chair and then sit on the sofa.
Yeah. I'd say there's even a step before that, depending on where the client's at. So again, this is part of the coaching. It's meeting the client where they're at. So because like you said, having drinking water could be quite difficult, or getting outside. So what actually is the first step? The first step might actually be ordering the running trainers or the
Yeah,
walking trainers. For some people, that it will be that,
yeah,
or order a water bottle like what I'm holding up now.
yeah.
That's another thing that we do, is get the water bottle ordered. But yeah, it's because all the things that I've mentioned, like journaling and meditation, everything else, it can seem quite overwhelming. So those small steps, I would go to what is like, I'm not gonna say normal, but what is like good for human physiology, and that is getting outside. Yeah,
Mm.
just get outside, get out for the walk. We're not designed to be sat inside. What we're doing right now, I think you may have a spotlight on you. I do. I've got a ring light on me.
Yep, yep.
We're not designed to sit here looking at screens, what we're doing
No,
right now,
no,
and have a
no.
spotlight on us. I know it's fine, obviously, now, but after when we've finished speaking, I'm going to be getting outside again.
Yep.
But get outside just for 10 minutes. And then if you're able to turn that into a habit, just start small, of getting outside and going for a walk around the block.
Mm.
Um, Also, as well, it's keeping track of it, whether that's on your own or having a coach to work with, just to make sure that you're actually getting it done. Other things, small steps with your diet. There's so many crazy diets out there, and there's always a new fad that's come out. But just look at your existing diet and go, with your next meal, you can do this. If you're listening right now, the next meal that you have is, how can I improve this meal? How can I make it more colorful? Because that color
Mm.
is going to come from fruit and veg. And again, still the stats today, people are not eating enough fiber, and that all comes from the fruit and vegetables. And again, this is all connected to mental health and everything else. So it may just be one small little change. Can I put some berries on top of my Weetabix this morning? Believe it or
Yeah.
not, if you did that for 2 weeks, that can have a significant impact on your health, because it's going to increase your antioxidants. That can connect to how you feel. It's benefit for your health. So it's just another little small step. How can I just improve my diet? Making one small change. Get the water bottle as well. Start small. If you're interested in doing some meditation, okay, you don't have to sort of sit there, get the incense sticks on and everything else, and you don't have to do any of that. I'd say just download the Calm app or the Headspace app and listen to their introductory course. That's the first step, and it might just be for 3 minutes. You're just gonna press play and just listen, and that's it. And to start from there, and to start building it up.
Yeah, it is taking those small steps, isn't it?
It
I mean,
is.
I've got my water bottle down beside me, but I can fill it up in the beginning of the day, and I can monitor how much water I've drunk.
Yeah.
And actually, I've found I tend to then fill it back up because it's to hand. It's easy to do. And I've been out this morning and got outside. It was fun. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not getting any sort of natural light, or not enough natural light at the moment, sat in an office, but get outside, even if it is just for 10 minutes. And I think exactly like you say there with the meditation, I think somebody think, well, I haven't got time for that. No, you've got 2 minutes. You've got 3 minutes to do that, because actually it benefits you in the long run anyway. I mean, there's the famous saying, you should meditate for 10 minutes a day unless you're really busy, and then you should do it for an hour, meaning that actually you're going to be more productive afterwards. I certainly know when things are getting stressful, I've got emails coming through, this is happening, go out for a walk for 10 minutes, then come back, and actually you didn't just get through all the tasks and it's fine. But while you're stuck in that moment, you almost become paralyzed with, feeling trapped, which I guess is the issue so many people feel.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Small steps. And I'd also as well, I mean, some people have asked me like, oh, what would be the number one thing if, to start with, like a little sort of like, introductory guide to self-development, whatever. And I'd say the meditation. If you can start that habit first, because over time, what that's going to do is it's going to help you to become more aware. And when you become more aware, you'll understand what's serving you and what's not. And you'll sort of start to, that unplugging that we were talking about before from the Matrix, you'll start to do that. And then you'll start to realize that actually this particular thing or this person's not serving me well. Maybe I need to distance myself. You'll also subtly start to use the breath throughout your day. So when you feel the stress rising, because you've built a practice in meditation, you'll use your breath there and then to help sort of center yourself and come back to the present moment. Yeah, I'd start with the meditation piece. If it was going to be one thing to start with, it would be that. Yeah.
You know what? That's really interesting. You've said that. I've been out to a meeting this morning, and I was sat in sort of the waiting area, and while I was meeting with people I know and things like that. A meeting's always, you never quite know how this is gonna go. As a client who pays me money, I'm wanting this to go well, and I noticed I just made sure I took a few deep breaths. I paused and that, just to make sure I was nice and calm. And actually, the meeting was absolutely fine. There was no issue there, but I've picked that up, that it's a great way just to calm my mind, because even though I knew what the meeting was about, I knew it was going to be fine, there's that little bit in your brain that goes, what if they fire you? And it's sort of like, and then you start thinking, and you're getting panicky, and you're thinking, why am I feeling like this? And you do then, having done some meditation, fairly regularly over the last 6 months or so, the breathing, just you use it just in your normal daily life.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And it's like people who smoke. Is it really the nicotine that's calming you down, or is it the 10 deep breaths you do when you're taking a cigarette,
Yeah.
So yeah, the breath it's your most, I'd say your mind is your most powerful asset, but your breath is your most powerful resource. Use it wisely. There's a reason why it's used when women are giving birth, and why, men, when we're lifting weights, power lifters, there's a reason why. But yeah, because what you were saying there about the thought about, a client not paying, and that's creating the stress. It's the thought that's doing it. That particular thought that you had in that moment is not serving you well.
No.
So then what the meditation can help do is to then understand that, okay, that thought's not serving me. So what's a more helpful thought? Well, the client might pay.
Yeah. And it just brought me back to the present moment and
Exactly,
actually the reality. because at that moment, regardless of what was going to happen in the meeting, I didn't have any sort of control over that as such. I was just sat there. So
Yeah.
why is my, brain going like this, and the body's getting a bit anxious and things like that? I just needed to be in that moment when actually everything was fine and everything was safe. I think, as humans have developed, the fight and flight, but there wasn't a tiger coming to eat me. I didn't need
Yeah.
that bit of fear,
Yeah. That's it. It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's the whole, that inner voice. If any of you have read the book, I don't know if you have, but the chimp paradox.
Yes.
That's a
Yep.
great book where it
Yeah.
explains about your inner chimp, and that other voice in your head. And the chimp is 10 times more powerful than you are. So yeah, it's learning to calm the chimp, put it back in its cage, feed it a banana.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a fantastic book. If anyone's listening and they sort of have challenges with their thoughts and they get caught up in their thoughts and it gets the best of them, that's a great book. That paired with the meditation, you did that for 30 days, yeah, you'll have a very different outlook on life, 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've said a couple of times here, just doing these things for a small amount of time. 30 days isn't that long,
No.
but actually, I guess that then can lead on to something. As you said about people stopping alcohol for sort of doing dry January or month or October or whatever it is. That's a short period of time, but when you get to the end of that, you start to think, actually, you're starting to have different thoughts, and then you're seeing circumstances or people you hang about with or situations or whatever in a slightly different way, whereas I guess before you're still clouding your judgment, and you don't know any different, because for lots of us, certainly here in the UK, you turn 18, we're probably younger than that, in the park or whatever, but alcohol's been part of weekly life.
Yeah, that's it. It just becomes part of the norm, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think as well, when someone takes a break from alcohol, they stop drinking, their identity shifts a lot. There's a massive shift in that identity. And, like what I did, I went into sport. Other people will plow it into a business. Other people will plow it into relationships. Some people will do all of it. It just depends what their relationship with alcohol was like. But yeah, it's their identity shifts, and it can be quite a concern, because you may worry about what other people are thinking. Like, you circle of friends that you meet up with, and all of a sudden now you're not drinking. How are you going to handle that situation? Especially if you've always been using alcohol as a social crutch, and now you've not got that crutch there. It's like, shit.
Yeah.
So, and again, it feeds into that, who you're becoming. So who are you going to become without the alcohol? Who are
Yeah.
you going to be when you've got mental clarity, reduced stress, less anxious, energy's through the roof because you're not drinking? What are you going to do with all that? It's also exciting, but it's also can be quite challenging, because that's where people are like, "Oh, what am I going to do?" Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of changes, we can all make to our life. I guess, you mentioned then, if, I mean, I still drink occasionally, I'm not
yeah,
completely alcohol free, but, I'm very conscious of how it affects me and,
yeah,
and my body. And I often say to people, when I'm in a good place, actually, I can have a beer, still feel fine. If I'm feeling very anxious and stressed, actually, the worst thing I can do is have a beer,
yeah,
because actually you might take the edge off it just there and then, but the following day it's many times worse.
yeah,
And and it's having that understanding, and I think I guess understanding how all of these things impact you, and what you want from life, I guess is one of them. And I guess lots of us just want to feel happy, want to be content.
yeah. I think that's it, isn't it? And I think, again, that's going to be subjective. And obviously, you said
Mm,
content there, because happiness is an emotional state, and it comes and goes like sadness. But when people say,
yeah,
when they want to be happy, what they're saying is either content or fulfilled, basically. Yeah,
yeah.
because if you were happy all the time, that would be exhausting.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's a state, isn't it? Yeah.
it's creating that. A saying that I have is, create contentment but don't settle.
Mm.
So if you can get to a place where you create contentment within your daily actions within your, within your work, within your business, within your relationships, with your family, at home, and you can create this contentment inside, which can take a lot of inner work. Don't settle though, because what can happen is when someone gets to that level of fulfillment, the challenges then disappear, and then over time, that then becomes their sort of like new normal, and then it can start to dip again. They start to get unfulfilled. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's about setting another challenge, whether that's in personal development, reading more books, just stay with it.
Yeah.
Set a challenge, if you're at the gym, and lifting weights or in your sport or something like that. Keep it fun, keep it exciting. Yeah, when you create that contentment.
I've loved our conversation today. It's been incredibly insightful hearing, your personal story. I love that actually you've come on and been so authentic and honest and said about your time in Dubai and things like that, rather than just coming on and saying, this is what you should do. You've given it some backstory as to how you've discovered this, and given some, simple things that people can do just to make a small change. And I guess it is that compound interest of just make this one small change this week and then keep building on it. And we can all start to, hopefully improve our lives. And I guess reduce sadness then, I guess, is rather than just, aiming for happiness, we just reduce some of the sadness that many of us have, people have felt throughout their lives. But,
that's it.
Thank you for joining me, Adam. It's been a brilliant conversation. I wish you all the best with your business and your fitness goals, and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.